Okay, welcome everybody to the third town hall. So today we're going to be taking a look at quite a few different things and effectively sharing the future of Siteglide. So let's get Zoom out the way and continue. So first of all, I'll take a look at what we've been up to since Adobe VC end of life. So we'll take a look at our progress since September. A lot of that is obviously planning and getting feedback from the advisory board and you guys as well. So you can see what we've been up to there. Second is the vision. So where Siteglide's going next and why, so our strategy and roadmap, etc. Luke's going to be taking everybody through some of that. Along with, as I said, the roadmap and sharing the plans for sort of the next couple of months, but also next year as well. So you can start to see some longevity to what we're doing on the roadmap side of things. And finally, we're going to take a look at community. I've got various updates to share and discuss with everybody there as well. So without further ado, the first section. So what have we been up to since Adobe VC end of life? What have we been up to since September? And as I said, there's various things that we've been implementing, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of them as well. So the first is a brand new live chat system. I know quite a few of you have been using it already, and if you haven't, I'm sure you might have noticed some of the changes with the bubble and the docs, etc. So the new live chat system basically delivers a smoother experience for you guys connecting to our team, and it's a bit more reliable than the previous provider we were using. But we also have some enhanced bots in there. So the bots are basically set up to assist you and us. They'll try and ask some key information to establish a baseline of any issues you might have, which is particularly useful for anybody who's not necessarily on the same time zone as us. So if our team aren't live and active, the core information will be asked of you, and then we can then resolve it much more quickly when you're perhaps asleep or offline, rather than needing to wait to ask for more information, etc. Now, we are aware, as I know anybody who's used it over the past week or so, the bots have been a bit keen. So they tend to ask for more information than is needed. So me and a couple of the developers are taking a look at that, and we should have some fixes out this week to just finish that off. So that is a good first step. Next up, what we've worked on is brand new docs. So docs for the UI, separate to developer docs. Now, this comes as part of the chats implementation, and it's actually been, there's a whole bunch of benefits here. So they're faster, they're more reliable. There's better tools in place for search functionality. There's inbuilt related articles. And while we've been moving, we've also consolidated a lot of the docs. So a lot of things on the same topic will now be in one document, which is much easier for you to read and find. All of the titles are now, anchored, so you can click on one and then send it to a teammate, for example. But in addition to all of that, if a member of our team sends you a link to a doc in the chat, you can click on it and it'll open in a much bigger window. So you won't be stuck to a tiny little chat window to the right-hand side. You can actually view it and read it in all its glory, which is really useful. Additionally, you can, if you open the chat window, you can search for a doc from the chat window without leaving the page you're currently working on. We'll be doing more on this later with contextual docs and stuff, but we'll come on to that in a bit. I'm getting excited to share that kind of information. Next up is some product related things. So the team finishing off some bits on e-commerce. So let's take a look at a few of those now. I'm just going to minimize Zoom because that's annoying. So first off is e-commerce tax and the shipping options. So now you can apply tax codes to specific shipping options, and you can show breakdowns of that in the cart on checkout, etc. So including or excluding tax and things like that. And obviously relating to each currency. So each currency type you're including. The second one is multi-payment gateways. So by popular request by many of you, I know, the team have now implemented the ability for you to set up multiple payment gateways on your site and offer multiple options to somebody checking out on a website. So you can see in the demo here, we've got the Stripe integration and the PayPal one, for example. So that's a pretty cool improvement there as well. I know there are a number of sites that were hoping to add that, so you'll now be able to. Next up is Launchpad. Now, This is something that I'm going to come on to in a little bit with some more detail. But effectively, we've been working on a new tool for agencies, which will be useful with onboarding and training and things like that. So I'll come on to that in more depth a bit later on. And finally, we should take a look at what's next. So what is Siteglide's strategy? What's the future look like? What does our roadmap look like? And Luke is up to share information on all of those things with us. Luke, are you?
Sure, I'll take over.
Thanks.
It's working, hopefully. Morning, evening, afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to go through and give everybody a bit of a high-level vision of where we're going with the product, our sort of core mission and vision, and then how that relates to our roadmap. There's a bit to say, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just go through it, and then feel free to chuck any questions in the chat, or we've got a slide at the end sort of prompting some questions to help us see where maybe you guys can add some feedback and ideas. So feel free. We definitely want to discuss and hear your thoughts, but rather than me go into too much detail, I'll go through it and then we can come back to any questions. So first off, just looking at our vision, we spent quite a bit of time on really making sure that we go in the right direction next, having obviously had a lot of focus on Adobe Business Catalyst, for example, but now really sort of targeting the right areas. So the overall vision and mission is to enable SMEs to build limitless digital experiences that use logic to leverage data while without the cost and complexity of enterprise solutions. So what we've done is split that up into those three sections and use the colors to kind of just help group everything. And you'll see in our roadmap later on that that's helping split it out and hopefully give a bit more context to what we're doing. But essentially, we want to help you build and scale experiences, use logic like automation, personalization, sort of clever tools to access the data, which is one of the really most important things about having one platform, is that you can have that data in one place and you can use it through the logic to deliver the experiences. So quite a lot of what I'm showing will be focused around this theme, and hopefully you guys will agree that it's sort of a sensible way of grouping it, and it sort of makes a lot of sense when looking at the roadmap. So on to next slide. You've probably seen this before, many of you, but just to very quickly summarize on how it ties into the overall vision and where it sort of sets us in the market as well. Siteglide is a digital experience platform, or DXP, as many of you have seen, and Martin will explain again later. We're voted by you the top DXP for small business on g2.com. Second is Kentico and a few others, which I'll talk about in a minute. But we're really focused on delivering far more than something like a CMS or all the individual tools, and giving you a complete platform with that enterprise scalability, flexibility, and reliability, but without the enterprise typical sort of costs and complexity. We can go into that more if needs be, but yeah, you'll sort of see there that, again, we've moved away from the sort of traditional CMS, even the headless CMS, which is very popular, but it does mean that you have to build your own front end and manage completely separate systems and connect them together via an API. So we're trying to incorporate all of that and give you some of those extra tools, such as a CRM, e-commerce, membership, and some of those built-in integrations. So just sort of seeing how that fits into the market quickly before we sort of bring it back to the roadmap, which I'm sure everyone's keen to hear. Yeah, typically when sort of picking a solution for a project or a client, you've got to look at all the individual tools, and there's some amazing tools out there. Shopify is obviously very well known for e-commerce, and there's plenty of tools for all the individual things, but they do have those they typically have some sort of limitations because they're good at one particular thing. Then you've got to work out how to connect them all together, maybe costs of doing that as well, and managing multiple tools. So the extreme of that in the enterprise area are tools like Adobe Experience Manager, but they come with some pretty high price tags and complexities and barrier to entries of getting started and making it prohibitive for many projects. So somewhere in between, a whole range in between, includes the sort of small business DXP. Our closest competitor there on G2 and just generally in the market would be the Kentaco experience tool as an example. But as you'll see from here, there's quite a high starting price point on that as well. And many of these tools are billed annually. So we've gone usage based so that we can offer that enterprise grade solution, but for any kind of project, and you just scale it up based on your needs. Just quickly going into usage based pricing a little bit more very quickly, because I know it's a change for many people when you're using other platforms. Just wanted to share some information from a recent study by OpenView, who are sort of leaders in this field. They've shown that they interviewed something like 650 CEOs from some of the biggest platforms out there, and collated all the data. But essentially, those platforms have either gone or are going usage-based pricing in the next few years, and it's just been steadily increasing. There's actually some very good reasons for that. Just very quickly, if you sort of compare it back to the 90s, as they're suggesting here, typically there would have been a big upfront purchase for a piece of software, and you would go through a whole process with a sales team to buy that. In more recent times, it's sort of moved more to, you can go and read about something and then you make a purchase, and it might be annual subscriptions and sort of cloud-based software. But now there's this real shift towards letting people vote with their feet essentially, and use something, make sure that it's the right tool, and then scale up as it adds more and more value, which is exactly where we want to be. And that's sort of leading into this sort of product-led growth concept, where people use the product and it's the adoption of that and the customer success and the product working that determines the growth. And just lastly on that, there's quite a lot of people and big names adopting this already. It used to sort of be down in the infrastructure layer, because people like AWS had to just bill based on individual usage, then more into like Stripe and those kind of tools. But you'll see now that it's becoming very mainstream. I mean, pretty much every CRM, for example, is usage based on contacts, but other platforms are going more and more that way, so they can offer better value and scale it. So any questions on that at the end, more than happy to jump into it, because I know it can be a bit of a change, especially when discussing it with customers. So I'll go on to the roadmap and show you how that fits in with the vision. So essentially, we want to make Siteglide just more powerful and more flexible in those three key areas and link it all together. And we picked some sort of big ticket features and things that we want to work on. I sort of hesitate on features because we're sort of trying to focus on capabilities just as much as features. We want to enable you and any agency or developer to be able to build anything and build any kind of custom solution, or a more out of the box one as well, based on some of the features available. So I've broken it down into the four categories, well, the three categories there, and then the final one that I've added in is sort of UI UX. That's the Siteglide UI itself and how we can make things easier for you guys. So I'll just go into each one of those a little bit more. For experiences, we want to just help you build scalable digital experiences faster. So one of the best examples of that would be Studio. Studio has been a design tool and an editor to help you sort of get there quicker. We're really going to focus on the editing side of it, which we know has been one of the highest voted features. We're going to make it easier, more powerful, more integrated with Siteglide functionality to allow you to do more dynamic content, for example. So yeah, lots of improvements planned there specifically for Studio, and Studio is the editor itself. Next up, We've got the marketplace. This is going to be key. If we focus on giving you the main tools, then you guys can build, buy, sell, and manage even sort of private modules, including templates. It might be specific feature-based modules, or you could even turn that into whole turnkey sites that people can buy and install, or you can just use to start your projects, as well as integrations to other services. I'll come on to that more shortly. We've got some examples of some of the things that people are working on. Lastly, we've got email. So we're revisiting that. That's something that some of you'll know we've done in the past. You've obviously got workflows and autoresponders at the moment, but we want to come back to the whole concept of being able to design and create emails, and initially at least send them out as transactional emails. And that links in very, very closely with the logic step, which I'll move on to next. So the one that I'm most excited about, and I think is one of the most powerful, is triggers and notifications. So this is being able to do far more automation, personalization, have total control over what you do throughout the process in a project. So at the moment, an example is the workflow. When somebody fills in a form, they can get an email. This would be event-based triggers. So other kinds of events, such as an order status being updated on a product order, somebody doing anything essentially. When an event happens, you guys will be able to create your own flows and triggers, either to send emails or potentially fire webhooks off to other services. Next up, we've got personalization. So that'll be where you take the data that you've stored and then use tools, languages like Liquid, to be able to create a unique experience for customers. It might be A/B split testing. It might be in a portal showing the right things at the right time. There's a module that Helen, I believe, is on a call tonight, has been working on, and will be releasing a module specifically for personalization in the marketplace. So more on those kind of things later. And finally, we've got automation. That's where you could really focus in on things like digital transformation, business process automation, and help your customers move their business online, build completely sort of custom workflows, and manage and work more closely with customers. Next up, we've got data. So this is probably what the core to it all, really, being able to capture, access, query, output, and share the data is the concept we've had from the very beginning. And that allows all of the other things to be possible. So one of the biggest things we want to do there is look at the API. So currently we've got a public API. We want to offer a completely custom API, where essentially you guys can write your own endpoints. You can build your own API effectively, and we'll have a library of things, including the public API ones at the moment, to help you do that. So it'll be a more sort of interactive way of putting your own endpoints together, but just giving you full control over what you do with the data and how you connect it up to other platforms. Secondly, we've got the reporting suite. At the moment, you can create reports for users, for example, and then you can do some bulk actions, but we want to take that quite a bit further and allow you to create and save custom reports, and then at some point be able to put those into dashboards. And also we're looking at sort of Google Analytics integration as well, so you can pull in data. We're not going to try and replicate what Google do very well. We're going to integrate with the right tools and let you pull it all together in one place. And lastly, just making sure that you've got total control over data. So being able to, we'll look at building any new field types. We've got a few coming very soon, as well as improving the file manager into a digital asset manager, where you can really manage files, access to files and links. And then we'll also look at making sure the import export tools are there for everything and just give you that total control. Lastly, on the 4 main components, we've got the UI UX stuff. So just making Siteglide easier and quicker to use. One of the biggest ones that we know people have been asking for is user roles. We implemented 2 levels, but we know we want to get this right and we want to do it properly. So we're going to do sort of enterprise grade, essentially, granular roles and permissions where you can control access exactly how you need to. And we've sort of firmly left that because we want to do it properly and put the time to it, rather than just keep adding a role which just isn't flexible enough. Secondly, we have contextual docs. So this is going to be really powerful for learning Siteglide, debugging issues on projects. And essentially, you just get access to, rather than seeing in a doc an example of what you might see data-wise, it will show you live data for that site. So you'll pick the site that you want to, that you're working on in the docs, and it will show you the tags, the data, and anything relevant to that site that you've been working on. And we'll also include demo site for that, so you can actually see how we've done things, and you can sort of take those concepts into your other projects. And then lastly, on this, we've got just more agency tools. Martin will be mentioning Launchpad shortly. We've been working on the billing UI to give you sort of more high-level tools there. And really making sure you've got the resources you need to win better projects, potentially more projects, and deliver more value to customers. Last up on the roadmap side of things, just wanted to make sure that we don't miss some of the sort of smaller features that many of you, I'm sure, are sort of hoping to see, and just want to know that we've got in mind. This is not all of them, but this is a good example of some of the things that we've definitely got in the backlog. These would be fitted in around the bigger ones, and obviously again based on the roadmap, voting, and just generally talking to customers. So I'll come back to the screen if we need to, if anyone's got any questions, but I'm going to show you the timeline of things in a second, which might give you a better idea of how everything fits in. But hopefully that gives an idea of those kind of things that we definitely know don't need to be there. Little things like custom fields everywhere would give you far more data control. All the actions, sometimes there are places where you can't delete, maybe because we've just left the things that weren't essential. So I want to make sure that we get you all of the tools you need in the UI. And then nice improvements like time zone, being able to like set that per site. Various things that we're aware of and wanting to fit in, but we also want to make sure that we've got the core big items that are going to make a real difference to being able to build any number of projects. The last one, I said that a couple of times. The last one really is just going a little bit into the marketplace, because this is the opportunity for everybody to take things further than we have. We want to make everything possible. We want to give you the features that you need, but then there's so much more that can be built on top, either specifically for a client project, or maybe even part of your business model is to create something of value and share it within the community. So some of the examples there that we're talking to people about and we know are being built: a gallery module, nice simple one just to manage imagery and a gallery on a website. Templates and themes, definitely a lot more to tell you about very soon on that. Some big updates there where people can create their own themes and put them in the marketplace, but also some actual far quicker ways of doing that than you typically have to. A whole sort of seamless checkout experience that builds on top of the standard Siteglide ones. Social single sign-on, Personalization, which Helen, I think, I've just seen something in the chat, we'll come back to that. But yes, a personalization module helping you really sort of control the user experience. Obviously, space for you guys to suggest any apps that you would like to build, and that can be discussed on the forum perhaps. Maybe if you've got an idea, put it on the forum, see what appetite there is for certain things. But yeah, there's quite a few others there that people are working on and interested in. So just one very quick example, I kind of touched on it earlier, but let's say you built a module for the marketplace that uses the new custom API that we're building, the triggers and notification feature, and that would allow you to automatically send an email to users based on a workflow that you set up. You've got total control over that, and then even use a webhook to send it to an external platform like Salesforce. So you could do, yeah, order updates that go off to your inventory system. It really could be anything, but that's an example of using all those different components that we're talking about, from experiences to logic to data and UI, and pulling it all together. One thing on this, you can actually do it already. So you can do everything yourselves, and that's the whole point. And one of the most powerful things about Siteglide is that you can tap into Platform OS and do pretty much anything you want anyway, but it's all custom, and there's a bit of a learning curve for doing some of those things. So we're just going to keep making those things more and more accessible and more flexible within the Siteglide ecosystem itself. Lastly, just going to have a quick look at timelines. So it's always a little bit hard with roadmaps to plan exactly, but we've got some rough dates that we can give you an idea of what it looks like. So yeah, hot off the press, things that we've already done, multiple payment gateways that Martin mentioned earlier, done some data cleanup tools that help you manage your data. That's yeah, hopefully really useful, and some billing UI improvements as well, some of which coming very soon, some of which have already been released. For the years out, we've got some new field types coming there, some being able to do front-end forms for modules like you can with web apps, and quite a few other sort of those kind of releases, small but very important. Then some of the big ones are in Q1. So the studio updates, user roles, and contextual docs, to name a few, would be the sort of usability upgrades in Q1. And the other big one for Q1 is some of the power features like triggers, notifications, and the custom API. We're going to really prioritize getting those things done. Just as an example, the things that those two open up in terms of capabilities are extremely powerful. It would allow you guys to either do more complex projects or also build more complex things for the marketplace that we're not doing perhaps, because they're too custom or they need a specific use case. Then in Q2 and onwards, that's where that comes in really, helping develop the marketplace and make sure that it's working for everybody and allowing you to leverage it. And then really just once, we'll have to plan beyond that based on the feedback that we get. So really looking at the roadmap and not just votes, but these meetings and just hearing back from customers on what the most important priorities are. We don't want to plan everything out and then find that we have to move it around too much. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of, I'd like to think that between Studio, user roles, triggers and notifications, and the custom API, that gives you guys a lot of the core functionality that can add the most value. But we have a slide at the end which asks you for some feedback on what you would also like to see, just so that we're definitely in the loop on that. So yeah, I think that is everything from me. I'll hand that back over to you, Martin. But obviously, at the end, do jump in with questions. I can see a few in the chat, so we'll come back to that once Martin's finished. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Excellent. Thanks, Luke. And yeah, it's been great to see you. So we've taken, as Luke sort of mentioned, all the roadmap stuff you've seen has been sort of deduced and put together and distilled from your votes and the feedback in advisory boards and previous town halls, etc. So hopefully each of you have seen something that has been important to you that we've put in for next year's roadmap. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the community aspects that we've been working on and that we will be working on in the coming months as well. So there's a collection of really interesting and exciting things here. So hopefully you'll all agree. First off, I just wanted to touch on awards. So as Luke mentioned earlier, and we bring it up fairly regularly, Luke mentioned about us being leading DXP for small business on G2. And we actually won 13 awards in 2020 and 25 plus in 2021 so far, all based on the feedback that you guys have given us. And we're even set to win more in the December report. So they call it the winter report, which comes out in December later this year as well. We as a team all read the feedback that you submit there, but obviously it's also useful for us and for other customers looking for an alternative solution there. So thank you for anyone who has given feedback. And if you haven't, go check us out on G2 and tell us what you think. So let's dive into a few of the things that we want to look at today. So the first one is Marketplace. Now, Luke touched on this earlier, and you could see some of the roadmap planned features, etc., will be centered around this. But it kind of comes down to two key parts at the moment. And the first is experts. So the expert profiles of agencies that's currently there. Now, a number of you in the community have already edited and published your profiles for others to find. And this experts area within the marketplace is actually quite key for leads and referrals and the whole process there for prospective customers for you guys. So we quite often as a platform have end customers come to us, and so site owners, and they have a problem, they need a solution. And so we direct them to this experts area so that they can find an expert that matches what they need and what they need to solve. So if you haven't already, head over, so you can go into your agency and you can fill out your details and click yes to have it show in the experts area here. We'll be doing a lot more with this, as Luke's mentioned, and we'll share more on that later as well. But in here, a customer can come, and as you can see, they can either find you by name, so perhaps we've specifically mentioned you, or they can search for you by location, which is quite important for a lot of them, or by skills and services that you have said that you deliver. So it's really important that you do head in there and update your profile so it's accurate and you get the business you want and they get the help that they need. Alrighty. The second part to marketplace is modules. Again, Luke touched on this earlier. So we have a module marketplace. It's been around for a little while. We haven't done a huge amount with it to date because we've obviously had Adobe BC end of life to focus on, as did many of you. So in recent months, we've been turning our attention to this. There's a huge amount more we want to do in terms of functionality in the coming months. But for now, it's actually been really interesting to see. So a number of you have put together modules that are internal for your teams specifically. So you're not sharing those to make things a bit more slick and repeatable and turnkey on sites. So that's been good to see. And as Luke mentioned, we have a number of modules that people are either working on and or have submitted to the team, our team, to be reviewed and then published to the wider community. So it's been really exciting to see those moving. If you haven't already started building modules, then and have any questions about it, you can come and ask me or anybody else in the team, and we can start getting your modules on there. We've also gone through recently and started adding more descriptions and images and explanations to our own modules, so that both you existing members of the community, but also new ones coming in can more easily understand what a module does and what it exactly is going to provide on their website when you click install. And for anyone who's not seen this yet, you also get to select which site your module installs to right there in the module. So you don't have to do it on each site level anymore. So you don't need to go into 5 different sites. You can do it all from the same page. So as Luke mentioned, much more to do here, but it's really exciting to see what's coming in the next few months from you guys. The next section is Launchpad. Now, I touched on this a little bit earlier, so we'll go into a bit more info on this now. So effectively, Launchpad is an area that's both on your user profile in Siteglide, but also on your agency. So it's tracking both the users and you as an overall agency, and is a semi-intelligent list of tasks that you can achieve within Siteglide. And its main focus is, and main intent is, to provide a broad range of information and tips on getting started and covering a lot of the key features and functionality of the platform. So some of you, if I know everybody watching tonight, for example, has used Siteglide already. So you might want to go and use this to test out your knowledge, or find something out about an area you haven't looked at yet. Also, this will be useful, we hope, for onboarding new staff members. So I know many of you are growing your teams, and often it can be a little bit complex and long-winded to onboard a new member to your team. So by giving them this Launchpad checklist to go through, which you can track and see who has completed which steps, it will allow them to cover a broad range of functionality on Siteglide and more quickly get to delivering for your clients. And equally for new people coming in, they will be able to identify key features and functionality of the platform that they're looking for to solve problems. So it should be good all round. Alrighty. Next up is training and webinars. So over time, we've had feedback from both the advisory board and from others just generally in the community that it would be really useful to have some form of training sessions or upskill sessions, or an opportunity to ask questions and actually get demos and that you can interact with. So we've listened to that, and we're going to be introducing this. The aim is to host our first training webinar next year on the 25th of January. Now, I've gone back through all of the feedback you've all given us to date and selected the topics that you've all suggested. So what I've done is created a forum post. There's a little poll on there. So if you'd like to, after this webinar, we'll send the links out as well. Go and vote on which you would like to see. And whichever gets the most votes, we'll do first, and so on. There's also an opportunity on there for you to suggest additional topics that you might like us to cover. There is also one other question on that. So obviously we'll come back to questions at the end, but it might be interesting to see if anybody thinks it's valuable to have a general training session, a Q&A opportunity more quickly than next year. So perhaps in the next month or so. But we'll come back to that in a minute and just see what you will think. And the recordings for those training webinars will be publishing to a library, is the plan, so that you and anybody else and new members to your team could just come and select the topic and find out all about that. Alrighty, so then the final piece is certification. And I know a number of you have raised this before. So we've listened and we are introducing this. We're taking the first steps today. So moving forwards, it will now be possible for agency and agency pro users to become certified on the Siteglide platform. And this will introduce badges, including 2 to begin with, for first agency and agency pro, to help. So effectively, many of you have said to us you would like to have a badge to present either on the pages on your website, on your profiles, so that customers and prospective customers can be assured when they're going with you that they're getting something that's quality. So this is the first steps in this, and later on we're going to be introducing additional badges that are more specific, so perhaps to certain skills that you list on your profile that we would certify because we've seen proof, for example. There'll be a mixture of requirements for each one that we'll be looking at. So we'll be expanding this much more over the next sort of 2 or 3 months and even throughout next year. So if you have any feedback on that, or anything that you think would be useful for prospective customers to see that you are certified in, let us know. In the meantime, anybody who is agency and agency pro, if you would like a badge, pop us an email or drop us a chat and we'll get that over to you. Later on, what we'll do is make it accessible. So we'll have an assets area that you can automatically just download the latest badges for your agency. Okay, so it comes on to final questions. So Luke, you put these questions together. Did you want to talk through them?
Yeah, I'll just quickly read them and then we'll go through the chat and let everybody jump in. But I just thought I'd try and give some prompts if you like. So just wondering if you feel there's a standout feature that you'd really like to see added to Siteglide. Is there anything you'd like us to really enhance and improve? Something that we've sort of, got somewhere along but could improve? What other services would you like to see Siteglide compete with? What kind of projects would you like to be able to deliver with Siteglide? Where would you like Siteglide to be in 12 months' time? And what resources do you need from us to deliver better or more projects? Hopefully they help as a little bit of a prompt, but we'll keep that up on the screen. Just going to have a look through the chat and read out some of those.
Lots of excitement for the roadmap there.
Yeah, thanks Devon. You said this whole thing looks really well thought out, great priorities, clearly organized and bucketed out, easy to communicate, listened for sure. That's good to know. Thanks Helen, saying the roadmap's impressive.
And then Craig saying GraphQL for Dummies course. That is on the extended list, I believe. I'll go and check out the poll, and I think that is one of the options on there for you. So absolutely.
I think that's a good example of, I saw that pop up while Martin was presenting, but yes, there are things that are complex or new, let's say, and we want to help people get the most out of those tools. So while some people are going to delve into the marketplace and build modules, we want to make sure we're helping others get up to speed with some of those core languages as well. So that'll definitely be one of the topics, as Martin said. Bob asking, are there instructions docs for how to publish a marketplace module? There are. It's definitely sort of the first phase of that. So we definitely want feedback and want to work with you on it. But yeah, we'll post a link to that and make sure you have it. Helen, will you continue building out e-commerce? Maybe you're asking there. I'm not sure. There are definitely features. I think I had them on the backlog one earlier, but we have opened up e-commerce quite considerably to enable you to add in your own functionality as well. It will totally depend on the votes and whether it fits in with the direction. Across the whole of the platform, we're not going to build very niche use case things that could be built by someone else for a specific project. We're not going to build those first. We're going to focus on the things that enable people to build far more flexible things and enable people to build the more specific solution from that into the marketplace. But yes, we do definitely want to make sure that you're not held up and that you have the feature set and the capabilities that you need. Just going to go through them in order. So please add Recaptcha to web app submit forms. Yeah, that's definitely something we'll review if it's not in there already. We've got some notes on that.
And then Harry said you've got some issues with checkout forms, orders appearing, form submissions are not. Matt suggested you need a progress bar, etc. Okay, I would suggest continuing in the chat that you have with Matt there, because it sounds a little bit specific to the site. Any checkout form will take seconds to progress. I mean, if there's something general that like speed or reliability or something that the team can do to improve, then they will and have done so far. So if there is anything else, we'll take a look at that. But I would continue the chat with Matt for now.
I mean, on that one specifically, I was involved in a discussion the other day about a partner wanting to release that in the marketplace and enable things, what do you call them? Feedback things like some sort of progress bar or spinner or whatever. So definitely things that others can do. But yes, we will look at anything that should be core as well. But yeah, if that's a specific project question, I'll let you follow up on that as well.
And Nick says he's got one that he could share if you would like. So lots of options there.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. And yeah, thanks, Nick. Clarifying that the triggers functionality is key for you to build out e-commerce order flows. Yeah, I mean, it's a hugely, on things like e-commerce order flows, part of it is essential, totally understand that. And then part of it is potentially extremely powerful and enable you to build far more than just e-commerce stores. So we're really keen to bring that one out as quickly as possible.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, does anybody have any either responses to the questions that we've outlined here? We'll send them out afterwards as well. Or any more general questions? Any questions about the roadmap? Now is your opportunity. Excited to see webhooks in there. Yeah.
I have a question with regard to the choice of payment. I've had the most enormous trouble with PayPal, who've frozen my account for three times in the last year without giving me any adequate explanation of why. And that's why I moved to Stripe. And I really wouldn't want to have to deal with PayPal again.
Well, our recommendation, we believe the best platform is Stripe. So that's a good decision there. You shouldn't need to use PayPal. It's just whether a customer requires it, I guess.
Well, that's what I was worried about. is a customer wanting to use PayPal while I'm trying to distance myself from them?
I mean, in that sense, you can help them implement something. It would be their PayPal account, and what we added in the last couple of weeks would allow you to just run both alongside one another. So yeah, it's totally up to you, I guess, whether you discourage the customer from doing that. But the point is, you can. Probably can't advise too much on.
I was really very happy with Stripe so far.
That's good to hear. Yeah, Stripe's incredibly powerful, and we've actually picked that as our main integration. So things like subscriptions, for example, we've integrated with Stripe, and you won't get that functionality out of the box with the other payment gateways. So you've got a reason right there to recommend Stripe to customers and hopefully push them down that route.
Thank you.
What I'll do is just come back to some of the roadmap slides here, just in case anybody's missed any.
Luke, I was actually going to mention, you just mentioned memberships, and I was going to say, I think the logic automation category will really make those better, because because right now, for example, Stripe handles the membership billing quite well, right? But like we're kind of in this middle ground of like Stripe has some email notification settings, like if a payment fails or something gets canceled or someone's card gets charged, but they're kind of cryptic. Sometimes they can also affect the rest of your account that's not membership related, right? So you might sell, you might have a shopping cart and you want your email settings one way for that, but you want your emails a different way for subscriptions. And Stripe is not particularly flexible for that. So it'd be much better for us to be able to decide within Siteglide when somebody gets an email because something happened on the Siteglide side. That's going to bring memberships to another level as far as flexibility.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, my mind races with the things that you could do when you combine a CRM, secure logins, and custom logic and actions with all the data. So yeah, great to hear. And
like that problem too is a problem with other platforms. It's not a Siteglide specific problem. It's just like anyone who uses Stripe is sort of stuck with that. So that'll be good.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Anything to add to that, do you think? I mean, Devon, you and I discussed that the triggers and notifications quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do you think we've covered those points?
Yeah, I think that one was nailed. I was curious, I think this is gonna, I saw it a couple of places it was addressed, but the idea of the file manager, kind of, what am I trying to say? The editing experience, if you're using the editor, the studio editor, for example, versus using
Rich text editor.
a rich text editor, like is obviously going to be different. We know it's going to be different. But just trying to make sure that file manager is consistent in all the places that it exists, right? Because the other thing is, like, for example, if you're in a page, there is no file manager, so you're dropping from the toolbox, which is okay. I mean, I'm not trying to. I guess I'm just saying, like, it looks like you at least have that on your radar. Like, okay, so let's just make sure that. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up, because it was one of the points I wanted to mention on the Studio one, actually, for this one here on Studio. Not only are we going to improve the editor, we're going to make sure that they are two different editors, as you say, like rich text is different to building, but we're going to have as much parity between them feature-wise as possible, because we totally appreciate that when you're training your customers, the more similar they are, that will massively help in terms of training. So. And being able to do the same things, definitely. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, good to know.
Awesome.
Cool.
Good summary on the roadmap backlog too. It was like, those are all things that I was hoping were still on the radar.
It's quite hard getting it down to 12, but that obviously there are more, but I think it's quite encouraging to see that I think that we've been able to condense the main big ones down to that core list up here, and then know that there's some filler ones in the backlog. Obviously there are some that are going to be very specific to different people and different projects and use cases, but yeah, I think generally, considering the scale and the size of what we've taken on, it's quite manageable for the direction we're going. So yeah.
Would
just a
love
couple more.
to see better API handling of assets. Yeah, Rox, I think that will come under the API overhaul that's planned. So the approach is going to be very much is effectively inverting the API. So you'll be able to access everything, and then write the scope of what you want to do, if that makes sense. So rather than us adding individual bits to like assets and going, right, we'll add an API endpoint for assets and an API endpoint for this, we're just going to give you access to everything all at once, and then you can define the scope of what you would like to do. So that should cover that.
I think assets are a little trickier, so we will have to obviously confirm some of the exact use cases there, but yes, we want to make everything accessible and easy to manage. I'm pretty sure we've got a ticket on that, but we'll definitely look at it if not. Couple of other ones there. Yeah, Juliet, echoing Devon's comments about Stripe, so building out a platform using those. Glenn, are there any plans to have an FTP style of editing pages rather than the command line way of doing it now? I don't I don't think so, because they're very similar. There's either FTP or the sort of command line approach, and the command line one, I'm probably not the right person to give the detailed answer on this, is more powerful and it's more integrated with the product. So I think it would be a bit of a backward step, to be honest. What we could look to do is help make it easier to use. I don't know if you've noticed, but within the portal on a site, you've now got the full command there that you can just copy into Terminal, for example, or into Yeah, so we can probably help make it easier. I think the contextual docs might help a little bit there as well, and the graphical interface for the API. So I think hopefully it's more of a UI UX and training challenge perhaps. FTP does have some quite big drawbacks and limitations, so I don't think we'd want to go back down that route.
I don't think we can, due to some of the services that are used with AWS, etc. They actually don't allow it for security reasons, among others.
Yeah.
And Chrome, for example, now the browser Chrome doesn't support FTP anymore on the newer versions. So everyone's moving away from it, but hopefully, yeah, we can make command line easier. As Luke says.
Yeah, let's catch up on, let's discuss that and get some feedback on that, Glenn, because command line should give you all you need. So I'm sure we can help out there.
Excellent. Any other questions on roadmap or anything else? Ideally Siteglide related, but could you please talk a bit about usage in the site's subscription panel? I've had some problems understanding what is creating usage volume when over a period of a month there hasn't been a huge amount of orders, etc. on e-commerce, but seems the ordered products are creating a lot of usage.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to go into a specific use case, but generally the table should show you the breakdown. I think you're saying that you've seen the breakdown, that it's in order products. Did you say, Martin?
Yeah, so sorry, yes, it's direct message, isn't it? So yeah, there has been or was an issue where when an order is placed, the products associated with it effectively cancels the usage, and then you can delete those. So you delete the order and then they're orphaned, which has now been, so you now have an access to you now have a page in your admin to access all of that orphaned data and then clear it from your site if you'd like to.
That's the data cleanup task.
Yes, data cleaner. So you can check that out in admin. Alternatively, you could look at sort of revising or fine-tuning the way that you have structured the data on the site, for example, or the way that you put orders together in the checkout flow. There's different options there as well. But yeah,
we are looking at the structure of e-commerce and looking at any improvements that we could make there. But in the meantime, yes, it would be trying to clean up any old data that you're not using, and then I guess only putting the data in that you need as well. That should help.
UI ticketing as in terms of support, Harry, with the support team. Yeah. Is that what you mean?
I had put it in. Yeah, I put it in the roadmap there. It's definitely something we're discussing quite regularly internally. Yeah. We want to get it right. I don't want to give too much away, but we're not too keen on bringing too many third-party tools into the ecosystem if we can help it. And we think it might be a nice example of something that we could deliver and show as a use case. So a bit of planning to go there, but obviously we don't want to affect the roadmap. So it's definitely in discussions, and I think we wanted to get the new chats and docs system up and running, get some analysis of that and work out priorities. But definitely plans for it. One of the key points I'd make is that if we do it, we're going to do it when we do it, we're going to do it properly, and it will be global for the agency. There's nothing worse for you and for us to have everybody having individual separate tickets that you can't see. So we will make sure that the data is agency wide. In terms of a second question of where can you submit it and integration, we do want to look at making it as seamless as possible and making sure that we consider things like the chat. So it's something we definitely want to get right. It's a bit like user roles. We're not rushing it. It's being planned out fully. Anything to add there, Martin? You're the one that has to.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We looked at several options and none of them were going to be good enough. for us in terms of making sure you have a smooth experience. So yeah, it is definitely being looked at. And where can you submit feedback for the new chat? So yeah, any issues either in the chat or alternatively drop us an email at support@siteglide.com and the team will take a look at that. We are collecting and working on some little tweaks with the bots that we want to look at this week / next week.
I think that was a key point there, actually, Martin, that having group tickets or tickets across the company is actually quite rare in other platforms. So we might end up having to build it ourselves, which is no bad thing eventually.
Could we? Oh, sorry, who's trying to talk on? We'll do
It's
that.
Keith here. I just wanted to ask a question. You may well have already answered this because I'm well out of my depth with all the jargon, but it's a brilliant presentation and it's been very useful as a consumer to have a better understanding of what goes on behind the scenes. But one question I want to ask is, I found it useful with Business Catalyst to be able to see how much sales for specific items had been made in the previous 6 months or the previous year. And that helped me determine what I was going to offer and what I wasn't. Do we have that function now?
It would be on the roadmap under the reporting suite. So this one here, you would be able to create your own reports based on any Siteglide data and then save that report and be able to come back to it. So yes, it sounds like you would probably build a report of orders as an example and be able to come back and review that data. Do you think
Thank you.
that covers it?
Thank you.
Yeah. What I'd also recommend is trying to pull out some of that data into Google Analytics and potentially even Google Data Studio if you want to do, because you might want to tie that data in with Google data. So yeah, there's lots of options there, really.
Cool.
I do have a quick question on the new docs. Like, so for example, in your timeline, you were showing the things that I think are imminent or maybe already done. Maybe it was actually, hot off the press. Okay, so previously there was like a release notes area where we could go and see like what had been released. And where does that live now? Same place? Or?
Yeah, so the dev team or engineering team sort of adjusted the way they were doing it. Now it is visible in the UI docs. So
okay,
sorry, but they've changed slightly the way that they're running it. So if you come to the UI docs, the all new docs, you can scroll down, release change logs. Now, what we don't do is do a release post for each one. We manage all of the change logs and you'll see the updates in each one. But what they do to compromise is when an update is made to a change log, there is also a post in the forum.
Okay.
So yeah, you can get
Got
a list. Awesome. John asked, can we have some label IDs on fields in admin so we know what to reference in the API? Yes, it does, not when making integrations. So yeah, Devon is right. You can view these on web apps, etc., but not when making integrations using the API. It depends on what you're asking, John. It might be worth messaging the team with a bit more info after this, or even during this. Just drop us a little bit more context on what you're trying to do. We can take a look and help.
I think it might be tooltips on fields, which is something we have talked about before. But yes, we can definitely talk to you about that separately.
Cool. Awesome. Any other questions? No.
Right.
So yeah, we'll follow up after this. So when we send the recording out, we will include these questions. We'll send a link to the various marketplace pages we've been talking about, the new documentation, and also the all-important poll for training sessions. So if you want to get a training session, get involved with that and give us a vote. And yeah, just reply to the email or drop us a message in chat to give us any further feedback. Luke, anything else you'd like to mention before we wrap things up?
No, I don't think so. Thank you for all the comments. I'm glad to hear that the roadmap looks good and hopefully well planned out. yeah, thank you everybody for joining, and we're really excited about being able to really focus on Siteglide now, where we're going to take it with the feedback from you guys. And obviously there are some remaining BC things there, but it's nice to be able to show you our vision and direction, and yeah, go on the journey together. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you next time.